We are here today to discuss accessory dwelling units. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'll quickly share the screen, have a look at what types of ADUs exist, and accessory dwelling unit is the perfect solution for the people who feel overcrowded these days. And we have covered a lot already during the previous conversations on detached units. Today, we are discussing attached ADUs, the ones that are actually attached to the main house. And I will stop sharing now. My name is Olesia. I welcome you all to this call today. I run a company called Home W.I.P. We actually help people start their construction projects, be it the main house or the ADU. And I welcome today Todd Jersey, who is the architect I have met actually in Oregon, but he is located in Berkeley. We met at the ADU Academy, and I welcome him today to talk about attached ADUs and his experience with that. I also want to start off with Todd, maybe a couple of words about, what your company does, why you do it the way you do it.
Sure. I'm just putting my cell phone in my signature, so you guys can have that. Okay, Olesia, thanks. So a little bit about me. I was a builder before I went to architecture school, so I know construction extremely well. I know the things to do that are, work and are durable and attractive and affordable, and I know the things that are not good not to do, which are hard to build and expensive or leak, or you get the idea. I've been, like Olesia said, we met at the ADU Academy last year up in Portland. I've been, I've been interested in wood frame, and I've done hundreds of residential projects, including remodeling. So remodeling has its own challenges if you are working with an architect on a remodeling project and or dealing with an existing building, an attached or conversion ADU, that would be the case. It's a little trickier. Takes a little bit more experience in construction than a detached accessory dwelling unit does. It also takes a little bit of a higher end or a little bit more experienced contractor, just because, especially if the house is older. So yeah, so I've done hundreds of residential projects. ADUs are because of this change in state law in 2017, and again, January 1st of this year. ADUs are relatively, I would say, hot, recent. I did about 6 ADUs before the law changed, and we've done about 20 since the laws have changed, including our own house. We have an ADU in our backyard. It's detached, and we absolutely love it. We built it for my wife's mother, who is going to come down and live with us, but she's still up in Seattle, Washington. So
Okay.
we just use it all the time. I do art in there. My daughter now, she's in high school, and she uses it for studying and having friends over for social distancing. It's very hard for me to imagine anyone regretting building an accessory dwelling unit. They're just so fantastic. When friends visit, when we can have East Coast relatives now stay with us, and they're just fabulous. And now the cost of money is very low relative to history. It's a great time to build an ADU. So that's enough for now.
Well, actually, no, not one little bit more, because you position yourself as an architect that is versed in sustainable design. I would like to look into this a bit more, like what is sustainable for you?
That is thank you for bringing that up. That's a mission of mine from uh, uh, from forever,
Yeah.
uh, is to do things that have the least negative impact on our planetary systems. So we work hard at that. So it sort of comes with the territory. It's not even much we talk about much anymore, just because it's so ingrained in what we do. But our all of our designs are extremely energy efficient. If any of you are familiar with the passive house movement, which started in the U.S. and was really sort of developed in Germany and then brought back to the US. It is really, there's some simple principles. I recommend you look it up, Passive House. I won't go into those principles, but we do a version of what we call the poor man's passive house. And passive house is pretty complicated and complex and can be expensive. We've sort of made it simple and inexpensive and work, especially in the Bay Area, which is a much more benign climate than much of Germany. So California, when I started our firm, there was no green anything. So I was part of the first, really, I guess the second wave after the 70s of, but the term green building wasn't around, sustainability wasn't even being used. So I was part of the sort of group of people. We were just trying everything, all kinds of different materials and systems. So I'm well versed in the the do's and don'ts of energy, uh, energy conservation, solar, anything, passive solar, active solar, solar hot water, all that. Our firm was one of the first firms to advocate for and design for all electric residential construction. Um, about 10 years ago, we started that with a firm called Beyond Efficiency, that's here in Berkeley. And so since that time, since we've started sort of generating a lot of these green systems, of course, a lot has come into law. So if you're getting a permit in California, your building is it's pretty green. If it's in Berkeley, you can't even use gas. And all these things, you can see San Francisco's going to no gas. These things are all coming. But so we know the way to do all electric units, and so if you're talking about an attached, since we are talking about an attached ADU, um, sometimes what we're doing is attached with a little bit of remodeling of the house. There's a lot of, well, maybe we don't want to get into that. We'll get into that later. I'll get back to it. That's enough on me and the firm.
Yeah, but I think it is a good bridge to talk about attached units are different from detached. And if with detached, you could say that you could get something kind of ready-made, with attached, you do need somebody with an architect uh, background to have a look at the whole house and kind of evaluate what the opportunities are. Can you say a few words like how should homeowners go about selecting the architect? Like, what are the questions that you think the homeowner should ask you before they sign you up?
Sure. Well, I mean, of course, I'll sell myself. If I was
Yes,
looking for an
well, you've
architect,
got an opportunity here.
yeah, I mean, I would look for an architect who has a lot of experience in residential design and construction and knows how to do cost control. And that's the other thing I didn't mention is that I know how to do cost control. So cost control is a big deal because if you are all looking at ADUs, you're looking at being basically an amateur developer, right? You have to hire an architect, you have to get a loan, you have to hire a builder, and it's expensive. So one of the things you want on your team is an architect that knows how to design to your budget within reason. Where we can't be held to a tightrope here because we don't control everything, but you should be able to. You want an architect that has skill in that area. And then skill, if you're doing it attached, you want to look at their portfolio and just see, do you like their approach and the work. Our firm in particular, we have no style at all. So we will do your style or your house, or we're very flexible. There are some architects out there that are really heavy stylistically, and you really want to like their style. Um, but most architects in the residential frame should be able to be flexible and work with what you like and the style of your house. Um, houses, especially the older houses in Berkeley and Oakland, there's a certain language that these houses speak. There was a certain way they were put together, the craftsman home, and you do want somebody that understands the 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 sort of the way the house is built and the language and the detailing. And it's not difficult, but not every architect is actually that good at it. So and if just so you know that I will come to, if the job is a good fit for us, I will travel to anywhere in the Bay Area.
I think it's very important that you mention cost control, because it's even more important in the detached ADUs than it is in detached ADUs, because it's harder to evaluate all the hidden issues that might come up. How do you make sure that the architect knows the costs? Because it's like, it's hard to come. I mean, I cannot very much. I ask you, like, how much it was the previous edition, because it will be different, right? It will not be apples to apples.
Right. Well, one of the things, if you work with an architect that doesn't have a lot of construction experience, a friend, or they're offering you a deal, the way to do that is to bring a builder on early on in the process and have the builder be part of your design process. So when I was starting out in the field, even though I had construction experience, there's a lot I didn't know. And I didn't have a lot of construction experience. I had a few years. So I would always bring in builders and work with them in sort of a design build team approach. And I did that for 20 years. Now I don't do it because I'm doing so much of this that I really don't need. I know what stuff costs. I'm always asking what things cost. And I'm good enough to be able to help you with costing my own. Sometimes I'll bring in like a subcontractor. Let's say we want to, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this attached ADU, but we want to re-roof the whole thing. Let's call a roofer and get a bid on that, something like that. But not every architect, I should say that not every architect's really interested in that. They're not really interested in what stuff costs for whatever reason. They're really more focused on what stuff looks like. And that's really true. That's a personality. I was a builder. I'm really a builder before I'm an architect. There are other architects like that. There are also design build firms that embody that kind of sort of harmony and holistic thinking between the design and construction, and they would probably be better at cost control than just bringing in an architect who doesn't know. Well, they will be a lot better. The one thing you do miss sometimes with a design build firm is the creative tension between the architect and the builder, and that can be so. And what I mean by that is that as an architect, I am your pencil and your eyes, and I'm going to try to get you the lowest price possibly. I'm going to fight for it, and I will fight the builder and the engineer to think about ways to do things cheaper. If you're a design build firm, it's sort of a conflict of interest. It really depends on the firm, but anyway, so that's, I'm selling myself because I've developed my practice in a way that to deliver the best product and the best services for my client. So I'm describing to you the way I think you should do is the way I do it. So makes sense?
It does make sense.
Right.
And also that's part of the reason why we're here. We are learning how to speak with architects,
Mm-hmm.
right? So thank you
Yep.
very much for kind of doing this with us.
Mm-hmm.
So
My
let's
pleasure.
dig deeper into the ADU space. So let's look separately at, let's say there is a house that needs more space. We don't have space for the detached unit, but we might squeeze in some sort of addition. Can you walk us through the kind of thinking process, attached
Sure.
ADU versus just the typical addition?
Yeah. So, the one thing you can do is not try to solve all this by yourself, but is to bring an architect on board who can help you look at attached versus detached. Um, we like most architects are doing mostly detached ADUs. And remember, there's another thought, which is a conversion ADU, which is basically, and then there's a hybrid between the conversion and the attached. So the conversion ADU is building within the existing building envelope. You can basically take your garages now and make them into ADUs. You can take attic space and make an ADU. And then there's in the case of a couple of clients we have now, they have garage, and we're going to add to the back of the garage and take the garage. So one of the things you should know about conversion and attached, dealing with the house, is that the state allows you to eliminate parking, on-site parking now. It can be eliminated for construction of an ADU. So the state is prioritizing human habitat and housing over parking. So state of California, who'd have thought? So because of activists like Olesia, that's how that happened. Um, so and then so when you're doing an attached, you're going to deal with how to add to the building. You're going to deal with entry and privacy and sound attenuation between the units, but it's all pretty straightforward. Residential construction is not difficult. It is in California. We are using, with an attached. One of the things you'll look at with an attached is, do you want to take? Are you going to take the time and spend a little bit more money on? And most people are doing this, fixing up the house a little bit. Are we? Usually people aren't just throwing an attached unit on the building, on an existing building. Some of the challenges we've found with attached units are, you're trying to attach to a house which often has windows. This is where you really need an architect's help. How do you design the roof line to work with the house, and then how do you design the waterproofing so that the intersection between the existing and new materials is watertight, it's water resistant. Of course, with a couple of things you should know about ADUs in general is that you do not have to get an additional electric meter with the utility, but almost 90% of the time you'll have to upgrade your service panel from a 60 or 100 amp to 200 amp. And that's about a $15,000 project right there. Unless you're doing a junior ADU, and a junior ADU is completely a conversion ADU. It's with inside the envelope. It's less than 500 square feet. If you're doing a junior ADU, you do not have to upgrade your utility, your electrical panel. You can just, whatever electrical panel you currently have, electrical service you have currently, you can just use. You don't even need a new sub panel. So probably a lot of information about that. Cities like Berkeley require a new sewer lateral if you're doing any new construction that's over, I don't know, I think it's not very much, like over $100,000. So that's about $10,000. So this two things to think about if you're in Berkeley, and maybe Los Altos and other cities, are the upgrade. Let's just call it a utility upgrade. So if you're if you also, if you are planning to go solar, you do need that electrical service upgrade typically anyway. If you have solar panels currently on your house, you probably do already have a 200 amp service. So a lot of information. Back to you, Olesia.
Back to me. My hypothesis, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if I do plain vanilla addition, at least where I am, it might trigger the upgrades of the whole house, meaning the toilets need to be water efficient, the faucets need to be upgraded to water efficiency, etc. With an attached accessory unit, it sounds like this is, as one of the guests calls it, state and church. So you do an attached addition, an attached ADU, and you don't have to touch the main house. What do you think about this?
That's correct. Yeah, there's nothing that the city or municipality can require you to do in addition to the ADU, other than the electrical upgrade, I believe, and the city. I don't even think it's legal for the city of Berkeley to require the sewer lateral upgrade, but you're not going to sue the city.
Unfortunately,
right? But yeah, usually it doesn't trigger any additional upgrades. You know, one of the things you can do with if you do have a bad foundation, you can use the attached. You can replace the foundation at that wall where you're adding the attached unit, things like that. So that's where that's where an architect can come in and help you do prudent things that will improve your home while you're doing it. Remember, when you're building an ADU, you're having a concrete person come out, you're having some excavation done, you're having an electrician, you're having a plumber, somebody putting in insulation, you're having all these people come out. It is a good time to piggyback on adding to their scope some things that will be less expensive. And also, it's very hard to get people to come out to do anything. If you guys own homes, you know this. So
we do.
if you've got a finished carpenter out there, get them to do the molding that's falling apart in your house. The trend. You've got stuck doors. You've got a list of maintenance stuff that you know how hard it is to get a handy person, right? Really hard. So you have this team of people that's going to be building your. So I would highly recommend you make your list of repairs things and do as much as you can afford. Take the opportunity. Would be way cheaper and way less headache. Do it now.
And I think another point on which we agree is that by adding on to your house with an ADU, you grow the equity of the house. So you might as well, grow the equity of the whole property at the same time. And I know, Todd, that you've spoken about it before, like the logic of improvements that add on to the property value.
Yeah, it's money is it's as cheap as it's been that I remember. It's a good time to finance your ADU, and of course your ADU is adding value to your property. I mean, if you're in California and you're in a nice area in California, you're at putting your money into real estate is, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. It's a good thing to do, and especially we're in this kind of uncertain time, and people are really looking for more space, and this notion of living of aging in place, which we call aging at home, because a lot of times moms and dads are coming down. They're not at their home, but they're at your home. They're at somebody's home. They're not institutionalized. And I quick back in the napkin on my mom, who we put in a facility at $350,000 later. If we had built an ADU for her at my sister's place, she would own the ADU right now. So yeah, it's a lot of money. So we literally made our ADU in the preparation for my mother-in-law, Susan's mom, to live in should she need to. So we don't have to scramble and put her in an institution. You know, that's a really, really big deal. So I know that's ADU in general conversation, but uh, some other things about attached ADUs, accessibility. How do you get in there? Every ADU has to have its own entry from the exterior. So that's another important thing to know when you're thinking about, oh, I can put an ADU in my attic. You can, and you have to put a stair that goes up to your attic from the outside, and you have to be able to, you know, s- get to that stair, obviously. So some other things to think about.
And I love the way you talked in one of your talks that are on your website, I believe, how people get scared by an additions that actually lift the house up, but you're going like, oh, that's no big deal.
Well, it's not a big deal if you're not living in it.
if you're not
Yeah,
in it at the time.
yeah. Right. Yeah, that would be like a second story if you're looking at doing a second story. Lifting a house is actually relatively cheap. Um, I mean, it's so dramatic. It looks like it would be so expensive, um, but depending on if you're really looking at a large project where you're going to add a bunch to the house and put in an ADU, that's a wonderful thing. It's something you really need an architect for. Yeah.
Okay, I see that we have started getting questions, and one of them I wasn't able to answer myself because I've given the link to your website.
Hmm.
But then there is the kind of longer format question about scoping what is possible on the lot. And I think Jack is saying that he has a slope. He's also on the lot with streets on the front and in the back with no alley, two front-facing streets on a street above the street below. How to scope if it's worth kind of doing it on a site like this?
Well, one thing you can do is, can you put my email in the chat box?
Yep,
Did you
sure.
have it? You can email me, send me some pictures of your site, and send me questions. Uh, your address, photos, I can look it up on, and then send me some pictures. Because of this with Olesia, I'll answer that. Usually I charge for this kind of stuff because I get inundated. But since you're part of this call, you get you can do that with me. Just say I was with you on the call with Olesia, and here's my site, and I have a couple of questions for you, and I'll give you a little bit of free uh, personalized consultation, and then we'll see um, if I should come down and look, and if I come down, that is a $500 charge to come down and analyze it. But I'll really answer your questions. I'll be able to answer probably almost every question you could possibly come up with for that amount, and then that gets refunded if you do hire the company.
All the architects charge differently. Some charge by the hour, some charge as percentage of the whole project cost. What is your take on this? Like
Okay, so
how?
sure, you never want to hire an architect on a percentage of construction costs, because that's a disincentive for them to save money on the construction. That always blew my mind that I never worked that way. So the two ways you want to work are flat fee or hourly. Um, the problem with flat fee is especially small projects are very hard to estimate. So the architect's either going to overestimate or underestimate. Neither one is good. If they overestimate, you're paying more. If they underestimate, they're going to be mad and cut corners. I mean, it's just the way human beings are. So what we do is we do hourly. We always work hourly. Um, we basically, you're going to pay about 10% of a construction cost of a project on architecture fees. Sometimes we're as low as 5%. Sometimes we're at 15%. 10% is a good budget number. But what we do is, it's like anything. you're entering a relationship with somebody you really need to trust. Getting a fixed fee from them is not going to help. They'll still, it doesn't secure you. What secures you is hiring the right person. So we just work by the hour. It's fair. You can see exactly what we've done. Sometimes we go a little bit over what I thought we would do. I can give you estimates once we, you know, sometimes we go a little bit over. Sometimes we make some mistakes, and then I just deal with that. You know, like you would want us to, by reducing fees. So when I started working with friends on ADU, what I did is I would give them an estimate that I thought it was going to cost. If we exceed that estimate, we reduce our hourly fee. So I have no interest in exceeding the estimate. I will sometimes work that way. But I will say this, for my commercial projects, I charge $350 an hour. For my ADUs, I charge right now $185 an hour. And we also use a lower cost drafting people at about around 85. So our combined rate, if you combine sort of my rate with our drafting, comes out to be around $110 an hour. So this is extremely competitive. I mean, you're really not gonna, if you're paying, you know, what you don't want to do, I'll tell you what you don't want to do. You don't want to go to a design service like Design Everest. And they are really good at dumbing down the process and getting you the cheap. I don't know how they're still in business, but getting you the.
Don't tell me they're the cheapest, because they're not.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'll talk to you later. Okay, you don't want the cheapest anything, right? I mean, don't ever do that. That's just never. It's life. We know that by life. You just want the best value. You focus on value. If you focus on value, you'll find people like like us. We focus on value, and of course, we're going to help you. The other thing is that an architect that's really got, you know, I have 42 years of experience. So we're going to help you with find the contractor, understand what kind of contractor. There are other consultants like a structural engineer, Title 24 energy consultant. We have the best. So there's a team approach to this, and the architect is really your steward. That's your main person. That's you. You have to have somebody that you think you can work well with. You really like the way they talk, and they understand your approach, and call references. And then you find somebody that you can trust. That's the most important thing. That's it.
Is monitoring the build part of your services? Because I was listening to Frank Geary on a masterclass one day, and he's saying, like, if I cannot control the whole thing, I'm not doing it.
Well, Frank Geary's a control freak, but
yeah I know.
I mean, look at his stuff. We do as much as we need. We're working hourly, so we're trying to keep it low. There's a couple of ADUs we've done. We didn't come out at once. That's also a value thing. We draw the drawing so that we don't have to come out. Doesn't mean we won't come out. Attached ADU is more complicated. We probably would always come out because you're going to be demolishing some things on the house, and we'll be looking at things. So it depends on the job. But yes, we do stay involved with the project until it's completed.
Okay, next question. What are some of the best design attributes or features for attached garage conversions into ADUs?
I'm sorry, repeat.
Best design attributes or features for attached garage conversions
for
into
garage
ADUs.
Conversions. Well, the biggest deal with garage conversions is how high is your ceiling, and then usually, and do they have the concrete slab is it good enough shape to keep? So there aren't really any more features than that.
Any common mistakes that people do there?
Oh, the common mistake would be, okay, here's a common mistake. I don't really know, but a common mistake and dealing with garage conversions is people put carpet on top of an existing slab, and the existing slab is not, it's not waterproofed. It wasn't meant to be used in an interior building. So you can't do that. So that would probably be the most common mistake in dealing with a garage conversion into residential space of any kind.
Yeah. Actually, the second common mistake with garage conversions is that people think that they're cheap.
Yes.
And unfortunately, they're not. And
Right.
one of the reasons is what you've mentioned with foundation. The second is that actually, structurally, it was not designed for people.
Right.
So sometimes you do have
Yep.
to enforce the structure, which might end up almost the same as the cost of the detached unit.
Now the garage conversions, when the garage is attached, it's within the house. Those are usually garages that are built better and are relatively cheap, much cheaper. The garage that's detached, that's at, especially in older homes, those are often not even convertible. The foundations are not they're not strong enough. The framing is too cheap, and those are mostly 80% of the time those are tear downs.
Yeah, and I think you're being nice with 80.
Yeah,
maybe even higher.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the question about detached. Isn't it more efficient budget-wise to go prefab?
Question of the question.
Yes, I mean, it's inevitable. You do sacrifice personalized design, but it is mass produced, so it must be cheaper.
Not necessarily cheaper. So I have something that I'll send to Olesia, or I can send it to you. I distinguish 3 types of ADUs: the economy ADU, the standard ADU, and the high end. Usually there's some pros and cons. I could design you an ADU that could be cost competitive with the final cost of a modular pre-built ADU, because there's a lot of that. If you talk to any of the sales reps, they're not going to give you the full price. Right? They're not going to tell you about the electrical and the sewer line. That's just their job. But I'm not opposed to prefab ADUs if you have good access. If you have to get a crane to put it in, you're probably gonna, that's $6,000 to $10,000 for a crane. I mean, it's there, and unfortunately, I've never found a company I thought did a very good job of detailing these. So that's something to watch. But remember, I'm comparing the work that we do in our firm with the work that a modular company does. To me, there's no comparison. Our work, the custom work, but we can't do all the ADUs. So to be fair, we have to compare the sort of average architect and builder with a site builder, modular build. So I don't really know how to answer that question. You have to.
I can help you out there, because I've been talking to detached ADU manufacturers almost for a year and a half now. So the bottom line is that on smaller ADUs, you do not see as much cost savings as you would expect, just because the production of them is not there yet. And a result is that basically, if you compare the end result, it's the same cost per square foot. Where you do gain is on time on site. And again, what you do lose is the anything custom or personalized, right? So that's the trade-off right now. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's a cost comparison, not at all.
Okay, that's a great answer.
Time and
that's a great answer. Time versus customization.
Yeah.
And customization also, people don't understand how important that is, because ADUs are very constraint heavy. So you're trying to put a house in a backyard. There's going to be view issues and privacy issues and noise issues and all this kind of stuff. So usually these things are hard to customize, and so if I'm going to say 95% of people are going to take a little bit, if it's just time versus customization, the customization is should rule almost anytime, unless your mother's coming in 6 months, you've got to get it done.
Yeah. And funnily enough, even the people who do kind of both modular and custom built, they tell me that 70%, even though they can do modular, 70% of their job is actually custom in the end.
Great information.
Yeah. So it's something else that you mentioned. The upgrades. I don't know if any of you have been to the, like KB Home or D.R. Horton kind of sales offices, where you look into the model home, as they call it, and it's all wonderful. And I always tell people, like, look into details, because if you ask, you think that all this recessed lighting is included, but when you look into your contract afterwards, it's not. And unfortunately, it's the same story with the modular companies. Some of them surprisingly function the same way as the bigger residential builders. So you have to be very careful to see. They will show you the model. Ask what of what you see is actually in the what they call base price, because you'll be surprised they will be tweaking all these upgrades as an extra dollars. Yeah.
So if we're talking costs, the economy ADU, and that has vinyl windows and inexpensive flooring and inexpensive cabinetry and fiberglass shower or shower tub inserts and things like that. It's an economic, simple roof. We can construction cost for that is $250 to $300 a square foot. So that's your lower end. Standard units are going to be more like $350 to $450, and then the high end units are $600 to $1,000 dollars a square foot. And a lot of times you'll look at the pictures of the modular ADU companies, and like Olesia said, they're good at making things look good, but you got to be careful. And that's it. To me, that's also another danger. I think another thing to be aware of is you want to really find people that you can trust.